Thank you very much, everybody, to join. My name is Dan Treiman, and I'm the CEO of NEIBC, that stands for New England Israel Business Council. It's a not-for-profit organization with the mission to strengthen the business relationship between Israel and Massachusetts. One of the roles that we have as well is to support an organization called Bird Foundation. We represent Bird in Massachusetts, which is a funding arm that was established by the US federal government, the Israeli government. And the reason I'm mentioning it is, let me share with you one slide. It's a press release, it's an extract from a press release a few months ago that announcing an investment in a project in the quantum computing space. And we are lucky to have two guys on the panel that their companies are participating in that project. The Quantum Machines from Tel Aviv, Idan is with us, and Quora Computing from the Boston area, and Yuval with us. So hopefully we might hear some details about that fascinating project. And with that, I would like to hand over the microphone to Yuval, who is going to run the next hour for us. Yuval, the microphone is yours.
Thank you very much, Dan, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for making it. And Dan, thank you for organizing such a lovely audience. Today, we're going to talk about quantum computers. And I think we were able to assemble a fantastic panel. We're going to talk about what quantum computers are, what makes them unique, what you might be able to do with them, what are some of the timelines associated with it. And a quantum computer is, if you think about a computer, you need hardware. You need something that runs on. You need a system to synchronize all the components of the computer so they work well together. You need an operating system for that computer. You need applications that run on that computer. And then you need money to build and develop the whole thing. And so we've got all of these represented on today's panel. I am a Chief Marketing Officer responsible for sales and marketing in Quora, a Boston-based company that makes computers. Idan from Quantum Machines synchronizes all of them together. Nir from Classic builds an operating system for quantum computers. Shahar's company from Polaris builds applications. And Will is sort of the jack of all trades, who's been on the hardware side, on the software, on the open source, and now on the funding side of this. So I think we've got all the bases covered. And maybe, Will, I can start with you just to ask, what is a quantum computer? What makes it unique?
Sure, yeah. So all of the computation that we interact with today already relies on physics. It's, bits are abstract things, but when we try and make them do things, we turn them into electromechanical, electromagnetic, originally electromechanical back in the things that, this is a mechanical computer actually behind me. It's part of this thing called the Babbage engine that they tried to build in the 1800s. So that was with mechanics. You were taking bits and putting them there, taking bits and turning them into electromagnetic signals. But beneath electromagnetic physics, there's quantum physics, and we've known about it for 100 years. And there are certain kinds of properties that exist in quantum physics that, are subtle and that can be exploited for advantage in computation and sensing and in networks. And so the basic idea behind quantum computers is to use those different rules of physics to do different kinds of computations.
And Will, I should have asked that to begin with. Who are you and what do you do?
I thought that was just the established credibility. Do I know about quantum? Yeah. So thank you, Yuval. My name is Will, and I've been talking about what quantum computers are for a long time. I'm maybe 15, 16 years into that. So my whole career has been in quantum computing. I started in superconducting qubits, which is one of the ways of making the hardware. PhD is actually in quantum algorithms. And then I was part of the founding team, initial team at a company called Rigetti Computing, which is one of the first quantum computer startups. But now I do two things. So one is I'm at a venture capital firm called Quantonation. We are the by number biggest investor in quantum technologies globally. We've got about 25 companies in deep physics technologies and quantum physics technologies. And I also run, and that's early stage investments, all venture investments. And I also founded and run a nonprofit called the Unitary Fund, which is sort of like a Linux Foundation for quantum tech. So trying to make open source ecosystems and fill in some of the gaps for things that academia can't build, and also that it's hard for me and my partners to fund on the venture side. So broadly speaking, I'm interested in this emerging industry, making this emerging industry around exploiting quantum physics happen. And I try and do that by giving away money in different buckets for things that look like companies. Well, not giving away, investing for those, and then actually giving away money on the philanthropic side.
So going around the horn, Nir, if I may ask you, one, who are you and what do you do? And two, what makes quantum computers unique, and why is there so much excitement in the industry about the potential of quantum computers?
Sure. So let me start with the second question. It's more interesting than my background, but then I'll answer that as well. So actually, the motivation for quantum computing started at the 80s. It's not new, and the initial motivation was basically, the fact that nature is quantum. So probably if we want to simulate nature, and we do want to simulate nature because we want to develop, new materials, new drugs, and so on, we should better use a quantum computer. Now, quantum, the logic of quantum computing is dictated by nature. This is the solution for the Schrödinger's equation, and over the years, it was discovered that it's much bigger. Quantum computing, it's more than simulating nature. It's actually a new era in computing because you could really solve game-changing problems and applications in many industries. Today, when you look at industries that are exploring quantum algorithms and applications, you will find all Fortune 500, industries over there: finance, automotive, aerospace, pharma, and so on, oil and gas, and so on and so on. And this is exactly, what we do, what Classic does. So Classic, I'm one of the founders and CEO of Classic. The company was established 3.5 years ago. Today, we are the largest quantum software company. We are developing the operating system and the entire quantum software platform that allows quantum software developers in various industries to develop their software applications, algorithms, and to run them in a hardware agnostic way on different quantum computers. And we have users both from enterprises such as Rolls-Royce, HSBC, Citibank, HPE, Toshiba, and others, and governments and over 400 universities, including the Boston-based universities, which are obviously, as you all know, some of the strongest and smartest end users in quantum computing. So this is what we do. This is who I am, and I hope I didn't forget any of your questions, Yuval.
No, you're perfect. And Nir was my former boss, so he knows how to control me. And so we're all good. We'll get to more detailed company introductions in a little bit, but I think that Shahar, if I may come to you, one of the areas that seems to be very exciting for quantum computers is the development of new drugs, new compounds, and so on. So maybe you could tell us who are you, and then why is it difficult to develop new drugs using existing high-performance supercomputers? And why do we think that quantum computers may do a better job in that regard?
Sure. So I'll follow the others, and I'll first answer your question, then tell everybody a bit more about myself. So most of the drugs that we use today are small molecules. And what I'm talking about now for small molecules is also relevant for other materials, not just for drug design, but also if we want a new OLEDs, organic light emitting diodes, or any other materials that we are interested in. A lot of them are based in the molecular properties of matter. And we are using quantum computers to design better molecules. As Nir said, nature is quantum. And in many cases, in order for us to predict whether or not a molecule is going to be a good drug or a good OLED, we need to understand the properties of that molecule. And quantum computers should be able to help us in doing that. So should predict the geometry and the properties of that molecule. The way we are treating this in Polaris is a bit different as well, because right now a lot of the quantum computers infrastructure that is available is not enough to predict molecules that are big to make them useful. So they don't have enough, the size of the computers is not big enough. What we are doing is we're treating it a bit differently. Instead of solving what's the properties of a certain molecule, what we are saying is, let's use quantum computing a different way. Quantum annealing is a way to solve optimization problem. So find the best solution from a very large number of possibilities. And we are using quantum annealing to choose the best molecule out of a very large chemical space, a very large library of molecules, to find a molecule that gives you exactly the properties that you're interested in. For a molecule to be a good drug, it's not enough that it will do the biological activity that we want, stop a virus, for example. We also need a whole lot of other properties for it. For example, we are looking for molecules that will get into the body, and for molecules that will not get into your brain, and also that will have lower side effects. All of this, we're using the capabilities of a quantum annealing, which is multi-object optimization. We're looking to find molecules that have many properties, and quantum annealing let us do that. For example, right now, the size of the library of molecules that we're looking at is 10 to the power of 30. That's 10 with 30 zeros after it. That's the largest chemical space that anybody in the industry is looking at. And we can do it again by using the capabilities of quantum computers, quantum annealers specifically. A bit about myself. I did my PhD in the Hebrew University, so that's the Israeli connection. I am a computational chemist by training, arrived at quantum computing by chance 5 years ago by trying to solve the problem of how do you find the best molecule from very large number of possibilities. Started to think about annealing, found quantum annealing, and started Polaris 4 years ago from that.
And Idan, I heard someplace that unlike classical computers that use bits, quantum computers use this thing called qubits. Could you tell us what is a qubit? Why does it matter? I mean, what's good about a qubit? And how do you make qubits do what you want them to do? And maybe that's something that you guys do at Quantum Machines.
Sure. So a qubit is a quantum bit. There's in the world today, they exist in different forms. Sometimes they are an atom that is sitting in a large array at Quera. Sometimes it is a sort of an artificial atom sitting in a superconducting at the bottom of a fridge. And instead of a 0 or a 1, let's see, what's the easy way to explain it is that there are many possibilities of what a qubit can be, as opposed to just 0 or 1. And also qubits, that you can create superpositions of multiple qubits. And so those capabilities together enable computation that is just not possible in classical compute. I think it's worth mentioning, the one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is that there is an atomic bomb at the end of this thing. There is even though one of the major motivations for quantum computing in my mind, although it's not something that is going to be achieved in the next few months, or potentially even in the next immediate few years, there is it has been proven that leveraging good classical computers, good quantum computers, ones that have high fidelity, we will be able to factor large numbers. And that is in order, if you want to break encryption, that's kind of what you need to do. And so I think that part of understanding the space is also understanding that there is this thing that is sitting at the edge, and governments are pouring money into quantum computing. There's both immediate benefits, as was mentioned, about drug discovery and potentially many other areas, but there's also this very, very large and important national security component that sits out there and is part of the equation. As far as the company that I work for, Quantum Machines, yeah, so we create systems that are quantum control platforms. So they're classical compute that run quantum computers. So in order to, you're needing to manipulate the most fundamental components of nature. That's really what we're using here. As was mentioned, what we're looking to do is change the states and control the states of the most basic fundamental building blocks of nature. In order to do that, you have to have a large synchronized system, depending on the specific platform, to control and manipulate and read out and understand what's going on. I should also mention that I'm the general manager of the Israeli Quantum Computing Center, which is a project that is a joint operation between the Israeli Innovation Authority, Quantum Machines, as well as Classic, and a few other companies to bring quantum computers to Israel and make them accessible to industry and to researchers. We are currently under construction right outside of Tel Aviv University. And for any folks on this call that are planning on coming to Israel and interested in quantum computing, please shoot me an email and we'll coordinate a visit and we can talk further.
Thank you, Idan. So what we're hearing is that quantum computers are these new kind of computers that use qubits, quantum bits, instead of regular bits, and potentially have some amazing applications. Some are good, some are more sinister. Shahar has described drug discovery as a problem that many pharma companies have. They takes a decade to move from an idea into something that's in the field. That is a super expensive process. It could cost using existing methods could cost $1 billion or $2 billion because it involves screening a very large number of molecules, doing a lot of testing on them. And the thought is that with quantum computers, perhaps it could identify much smaller subsets of compounds that are interesting for exploration, and thus be able to make this process faster and cheaper. And we've heard from Idan about some of the more sinister aspects. A computer scientist, a professor in MIT called Peter Shor, invented an algorithm quite some time ago that basically said if you have a sufficiently powerful quantum computer, you could break the world's encryption system, all the system that is used for credit card transactions and medical records and what have you. And so that, of course, is both a motivation to develop faster and faster quantum computers, as well as a major source of concern for governments. Could someone today be recording data in the hope that one day they'll be able to decrypt it? Who will have a quantum computer first that would be able to do all these amazing things or bad things? I wanted to ask you, Will, perhaps, we spoke about breaking the encryption system. We spoke a little bit about drug discovery. What other key applications are you seeing today for quantum computers?
Yeah, so there's sort of two categories of applications. There's things people are trying now, and then there's things that are a little bit more long term and so breaking encryption with Shor's algorithm is more of a longer term thing. But a couple of the other big buckets are, so one big bucket that discovery is also in is just simulating physics in general. And so, if today, when we design airplanes, we do it on computers. We use wind tunnels maybe a little bit, but when we design catalysts, where there, or if you want to design something very exotic, like a high temperature superconductor, it's very manual. We know the laws of physics, it's quantum mechanics, but the computation is very hard to do. So there's a lot of, you have to do things in the lab, in the real world, instead of being able to optimize them on computers. And so this kind of general category of quantum physics simulation has applications in things like battery design, if you want to design organic batteries, or like high temperature superconductors, or if you want to study how fusion reactions can work in certain settings, places where there's quantum physics involved in some form, you want to accelerate with quantum computers. And in many ways, I think that might be some of the first applications. And some of those questions are scientific, things about how fundamental questions about how the universe works, and some of them are industrial. Other applications are in finance and in optimization and machine learning. I personally have done a fair amount of work in financial applications, things like pricing of derivatives or calculating risk. We know there are algorithms that run better on quantum computers than on regular computers. And there's a lot of details that need to get filled in still to realize that theoretical value. But those are potentially large markets as well. So sort of the big buckets are quantum chemistry, quantum materials, chemistry simulation, optimization, machine learning, which is a little more speculative, but very interesting. And then the finance and simulations that are not physics simulations, so like Monte Carlo simulations. I kind of bucket those big categories.
Nir, I wanted to ask you, we spoke about an operating system, and we hear about all these different applications that quantum computers could be used for. Now, classical computers, people know how to program, right? You can use Python or C or BASIC, or back in the day, COBOL and Fortran and so on. Is it any different? How is programming quantum computers different, and why is it difficult to do today?
So yeah, great question. So there are two aspects here. The fortunate one is we don't really need to invent anything, right? The math, the logic is dictated by nature, and we know it. It's very accurate. Nothing like spooky about it. It's really straightforward. Quantum programming is multiplying matrices with vectors, which sounds simple. It's not. And the bad thing is it's software all over again, right? There is no really any connection between the classical stack and the quantum stack. The logic is different. And in essence, what you need to do today, or in the previous couple of years when you wanted to develop software for quantum computers, you need to specify gate level operations. It's a bit like building classical software with specifying gate level operations like NAND, XOR, and or. We don't do that. We don't, because we have so many layers of abstraction on top of that. All of these layers of operating systems, compilers, and so on and so on and so on. In quantum, we don't have that, and therefore we need to develop these layers all over again in a very different way, because it is different. But the lucky thing is we can borrow many technologies and methodologies from the classical stack, which is exactly what Classic does. So we bring specifically the technologies of design automation, high-level modeling, synthesis, operating systems to the quantum stack in order, we don't have like 60 years to build a quantum software stack because the industry is evolving very fast. Actually, 2 weeks ago in one of the largest quantum conferences in the world, you personally announced a very major breakthrough in quantum hardware. So everyone should be ready, and this is what we are focused on from the software perspective.
Wonderful. So thank you for the setup, Nir. As they say, enough about you. Let's talk about me. Let me show a slide or two about Quera, say where we are, and then take it back to the panel, if I may. Quora is based in Boston. We are a startup company that was launched out of pioneering research at Harvard and MIT. We build quantum computers. Our quantum computers are based on what's called neutral atoms. So each of these bits, these qubits, quantum bits that we mentioned, is an individual atom. In our case, it's a rubidium atom. Rubidium is sort of, if you remember the periodic table, it's a few rows below hydrogen. And if you think this is science fiction, it certainly sounds like science fiction, though it does work. These rubidium atoms are held in place by tiny laser beams. They're held together, a couple of millionths of a meter apart, and we can control them and get them to do some calculations. People access the machine today on the clouds, meaning, so just like you could reserve computing capacity on Amazon or in Google or in Microsoft Cloud, people can use our computer on the Amazon cloud. Nir mentioned a breakthrough. There's a big issue. We may have time to talk about it later with quantum computers, that they're still sort of error prone. They're very sensitive to the environment, and therefore they need what's called error correction to allow them to perform longer and more complex calculations, and we've announced some breakthrough on that. One very powerful thing about Quora is that we are able to sort of create a pipeline where we work closely with MIT and Harvard scientists, fund some of that research, and then commercialize it. That's why for the past year, we're the only company that's making a computer of our type, what's called neutral atom computers, that's live. It's being used by dozens or by now hundreds of organizations around the world. And again, based in Boston. And what's been happening in the market is that people can wish to use these in 3 different ways. One, you have companies that have heard about quantum computing and say, hey, could you help me do a proof of concept? I want to explore an optimization problem, or I want to explore a drug discovery problem. Can we do something small on your computer to do that? And of course, we're happy to accommodate. The second thing is we see organizations around the world setting up incubators or quantum accelerators, and they basically say, I just want to talk to your experts and get moving faster. And the third thing, which is very new over the past year, is that there's so much money being spent on the national level. Some in the US, but each of the major European countries is spending billions of dollars or billions of euros in their case in setting up a national quantum program. So more and more companies and more countries want to buy or lease a quantum computer to jumpstart their local quantum economy because they see it as a strategic technology. Some in Europe feel that they may have missed the internet in the sense that most the biggest internet companies are in the US. Some may say we at Europe have missed the AI revolution, and they're determined not to miss the quantum revolution. And so we're happy to sell computers to these companies. One country that is usually fantastic at doing great things very efficiently is Israel, and Israel also has a quantum program. And then Idan, as he mentioned, is managing the quantum computing center in Israel. So Idan, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the motivations behind the Israeli quantum program, what it entails, and what the expected outcome might be.
Sure. So actually, I've got a slide as well. There's a lot going on the slide, but it will elucidate some of the questions here. Okay, so the Israeli Quantum Computing Center, the premise for building the center is, again, to jumpstart and accelerate quantum innovation in Israel, help build a workforce, and enable the magic that is Israel to, or help enable the magic that is Israel come to quantum. So the platform, what makes it very unique is access at all levels of the stack. As has been sort of mentioned a few times, there are problems to be solved at the very highest level. like Shahar was doing with Polaris. You can see that Classic is here, helping build the operating system. You know, if you're looking to solve problems, if you're looking to actually create better control systems, better control. We're still even at the stage where we are looking to create what's better gates and optimize code for quantum error correction. That's actually a very large area of study. So you can imagine, for those that know about classical compute, this is very, very low level. We really are at the stage where we need innovation everywhere. And as has been mentioned, there are quantum computers that are available today on the cloud. So I think IBM is one of the leaders. I'd like to imagine that Quera is also one of the leaders. But IBM is sort of the poster child for the large company that's been spending hundreds of millions, maybe billions of dollars now. Their platform is available online. Users can access it at a very, very high level. So kind of, you know, at this layer up here. And the objective of the center is to actually enable access at all the layers. So now jumping into what we're doing in Israel, we have a few different platforms. So we're even at this stage of quantum computing today where we don't know what is the platform that's going to create the best quantum computer, or even if there might be a few different, there might be application specific platforms. So we're really early. It's like, we don't know if it's transistors or vacuum tubes or pulleys that are going to run this whole operation. So at the center, we have a superconducting platform that is provided by a Dutch company. Superconducting is the technology that IBM, Google, Amazon, and then many other smaller companies are also working on. We have a photonics platform that's brought by a British company. Photonics, there are also a number of companies. There's an open test bed, so users can bring in their own hardware to actually test it out. And then there's going to be and right now we're under construction, so that should be up in a few months here. There's also an HPC infrastructure. So I don't know if we're going to go into this, but there's a lot of areas of exploration where we're actually using classical compute and quantum computers together to solve harder problems, both to make the quantum computers better and to create workloads that exist on the classical compute where they throw off certain components of the calculations to the quantum computers. The middle layer is quantum machines. So this is, we've actually created a partnership with NVIDIA as well for an ultra low latency interconnect into the quantum computer. So this is the control system that is sending in the pulses. Then there is our work here with Classic, and there's many different types of software platforms that are also leveraging and people are trying out. But Classic is helping us and running this upper layer to enable users to access this from the cloud and again run those very, very low level. And we're also looking to add additional platforms. So there's a few other conversations that are ongoing. I hope to have more announcements soon of additional platforms that will be joining the center. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely. And Shahar, I wanted to ask you, I mean, this all sounds great, but does it work today? I mean, can companies do something useful with quantum computers today, say in your field of drug discovery?
So we are doing something very useful, and I judge usefulness by two things. A, is somebody else willing to pay for it? So we have customers, paying customers that are hiring us to do something that got nothing to do with quantum computers, although we are using quantum computers to reach it. So we have customers that ask us to design molecules for them and that are buying our molecules. So, and so we have two faces almost, right? One face is the face we present to our customers, pharma, biotech companies, and we tell them we give you the best molecules. And we use that technology, but for them, they don't care about that. And I think that's a maturity of a field that the quantum computing field is reaching now, is the maturity where you can use it as part of your stack, where you don't care how you got those molecules, right? Right now, when somebody is running a computer game on their computer, they don't care which part is run on the CPU and which part is run on the GPU, right? They just care that it's running, that it's working. And I think quantum computing is reaching that stage. We are seeing that on the quantum annealer field, where you're trying to solve large optimization problems. We're not the only one who are using it, of course. Group are using it for supply chain optimizations, for solving large optimization problems of how you run the Los Angeles port, for example. All of these, but also the more fault tolerance classical quantum computers are reaching those sizes, those stages where they are becoming useful, and people should start running on them. We, for example, collaborate with Quera. We just received funding from DARPA to solve our problems on Quera's systems, which are becoming big enough for us to run on them. So I think quantum computing is here, is becoming very useful, and for some problems it is already useful enough that commercial applications can run.
Yuval, 1 second. I'd like to make a shameless plug for Neil and his company, Classic. If there are folks here that are in all sorts of different industries that might be interested in exploring quantum computing, Neil's company works with, as mentioned, many of the Fortune 500 companies, and they can really help you analyze if your problems can be transposed onto quantum computing and get you ready for the advancements in quantum computing.
Wonderful, thank you. And Will, I wanted to ask you, because you you wear or have worn so many different hats in different parts of the industry. What does the industry need to move forward faster? Is it just money? Is it users? Is it workforce development? What do you see as sort of critical needs for making this dream happen sooner?
Yeah, I mean, it's not one thing, but I'd say there is sort of a kind of like a high level chapter like of narratives of where we are, and it's kind of good to locate this. So we're really in the early adopter phase for quantum computing. 5-6 years ago, broadly speaking, there were no quantum computers. Then there were very bad ones that were only good enough to basically say these are quantum computers, but just barely. And now we're in a phase where a couple companies in a few different technology modalities are making machines that can do something or look to be able to do something that regular computers can't. And how useful that thing is will take time to, there's basically two things that are going to happen. One is the computers will continue to get better, and we'll also continue to get better at figuring out how to use them. And so I think, I would say what we need is a bit of patience, to answer your question directly. The technology has gotten a lot better and continues to get a lot better. There are concrete changes where people are implementing things like error correction, which are new capabilities that we've known about in theory for a long time. You know, Qubit is working on it along with basically everyone else in the industry. And there are big changes in the scale of the ecosystem. You know, there's been more venture capital funding for quantum computing in the last 2 years than in human history up until that point. But that's still only $4 or $5 billion, and we spend $30 billion on potato chips every year in the US. You know, so it's the same when we look at workforce. I mean, so you know, the workforce is probably 10 times as big as it was in 2015, but in 2015 it was 100 people. So I would say the thing we need is to recognize that things are growing quickly, and we have steady progress, but there's a ways to go. And so we need a little bit of patience around that. And so you need patient capital that understands where the technology is at. And you need patient partners and customers who recognize the value from working over the long term to develop this.
And that's probably a disadvantage of the Israeli system, lack of patience. Like, yeah, let's get this going quicker.
I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't get going quickly. I mean, we should go as fast as we can. It's just as fast as we can is it's going to take a little bit. I mean, these are SaaS businesses, right? But the thing is, this is a fundamentally new kind of industry. And so the upside is big enough to justify a little bit of longer timelines.
Excellent. So first, for the audience, feel free to put questions in the chat, and I'll try to sort of embed them in the conversation. The second thing, Will, you did post something on the chat on energy, quantum and sustainability. So I think that there are two sides to this, perhaps. One is, could we use quantum technology to develop, better batteries or better solar cells and so on? And the other thing that's sometimes overlooked, and I wonder if you could add some information on that, are quantum computers more energy efficient or less energy efficient than supercomputers? And if quantum computers were able to take some of the workload that's being done on high-powered supercomputers, would that help the world's energy consumption?
Yeah, I actually, I'll just refer to the links that I posted in the chat for like more detailed studies of this. But the important thing is that there are multiple metrics around which quantum computing can be useful. They can be faster, more accurate, cheaper, and also more energy efficient. Energy efficient and cheaper often trade-off. And it looks like for different kinds of problems that people care about, quantum computers might be vastly more energy efficient. There's a couple, some examples, 100,000 times more. And I suppose at a very high level, you can think about this as there are some fixed costs for quantum computing. Let's say cryogenics, keeping things cold, but the computation happens with like sometimes a single photon. Like that's not a lot. The actual computation is not that much energy. Control electronics obviously are more expensive and that kind of thing. But compared to modern data centers for some of the benchmarks, it looks like quantum computers might be much better. I personally, and people are doing more of the econometric math on this, I don't think that's the thing that's going to make the biggest difference for preventing climate change or not. Data centers are a huge cost. I think about it a little bit, the energy efficiency a little bit more around preserving the upside that we want to get in the future. So there's everyone's seen AI and machine learning and all these new directions just show that our hunger for compute is huge. And so how do we realize that additional, satisfy that hunger for really interesting and important applications while at the same time, actually reducing because of climate change implications? So it's nice that quantum computers offer this path to increase our computation capabilities and at least at a rate that looks like it won't be using as much energy as if we just kept trying to build data centers.
Nir, one of the things that I've heard you say multiple times is perhaps about the Haber-Bosch process and creating fertilizers and so on. Could you elaborate how quantum computers might help and what the societal impact of that might be?
Sure. So basically, it's really good that the Haber-Bosch process was invented a century ago, because otherwise we pretty much had nothing to eat. But we do have, so it's good that we know how to produce, fertilizer and ammonia, derivative and so on. The frustrating aspect of this, process is how energetic consuming it is, right? It's I think it's about 2% of the world's energy consumption, over $200 billion every year, and a lot of pollution dedicated to this important process. And why it's frustrating, because we know it could be done almost with no energy, right? Because this is basically what every plant in the world is doing. So why can't we, do the same? Why can't we mimic this great natural process and produce fertilizers with almost no energy? So actually we can, and we know pretty good how to simulate this process. The problem is this is a massive calculation, right? To do this calculation on a supercomputer, we know how to do that, but it would take centuries and actually even much more, millions of years. On a quantum computer, it could take days, weeks or so, but it's possible. I think the most exciting application of quantum computing is not the type that improve possible applications, which are also very important applications, by the way, but the type of applications that are now possible and were previously impossible. So this is a good example.
I want to add on to that and mention that it's sort of from an economic perspective and from a business perspective, what we're hearing from Neil and Shachar and William to some extent is that many of the applications are going to be a winner takes all. You know, this is not like this is not a technology that's going to be on your phone anytime soon, and it's going to help you, you know, play Flappy Birds faster or something. It's going to lead to new discoveries and new innovations. And when that happens, you know, getting there second is as good as not getting there at all. And I think that's one of the motivations also for acceleration and for a lot of companies to really dig into it and begin to think about how they prepare for it. How do you actually get to be the first one, you know, to discover a drug, to discover a new process? I think that's a context that is worth considering.
Excellent. Dan previously showed a slide about the Bird Foundation project, and maybe Dan, you could talk a little bit about what the particular project between our two companies, Quantum Machines and Quera, is, and you know, why are we doing this? You know, how is it helping both our companies?
Sure. So, since I'm a neutral atom platform expert, I'll start with explaining. So Quera's system has neutral atoms, as mentioned, these rubidium atoms that are set out in an array, and they are laser pulses are shined at these individual atoms to enable them to move to a different quantum state. And then these atoms are moved around in a very incredible way. There's videos on it. I recommend people watch it. And then remember that these are actually individual atoms. It really is mind-blowing. And so there's different regions of this array that exist. And so what you want to do is you need to actually control, again, both where an atom is and then also its state. And the way you change its state is by pulsing lasers at it. So as I understand it, Quera's mission is to create the best quantum computer in the world. Some might say they've already done this in the last couple of weeks. But the next iteration is to be able to control many, many more qubits, many, many more atoms in this case, and to be able to drive the quantum states of each individual atom. And so this is an example of where the innovation between the New England area and Israel is working out very, very well. So we have built capabilities to be able to control up to thousands of qubits. And so what you'll need to do is, in the Quera case, be able to control thousands of laser beams, in essence. And so there's innovation coming out of Dirk England's lab, and he's a professor at MIT, that enables control of more and more individual lasers. And so, as you can imagine, you have this array of individual atoms, and you need to decide which atoms are getting which laser beams and at what time. And that's a very hard problem to solve. There's a lot of synchronization and a lot of challenges that exist there. So we have been in conversation, and then we launched this project through Bird to build this component for Quera. And in the process, there's, again, as mentioned, there's many different kinds of quantum computers, and it's very plausible that they'll be used for different types of problems. And so there's ions, and there's NV centers, and there's optically addressable spin qubits. So there's these different platforms that also need controlled laser beams, many channels of controlled laser beams, in essence. And so we're creating a product, co-developing a product that can be used both in Quera's roadmap and also is useful for other platforms in the field.
And so the wonderful thing about Bird is that it's providing funding to both Quera and Quantum Machines to accelerate the development of this product. And by doing so, it also accelerates the adoption of quantum computing in the industry in a broader sense, because this is a component that we intend to be able to offer to other companies in the field. Nir, I wanted to ask you, if I have a son at college, in college right now, and he wants to get into quantum computers, how does one get started? I mean, it looks like a growing industry, fantastic future, maybe a good time to get on the ground floor. How does one get started with programming for quantum computers?
So actually, my shortest my shortest answer is just what I've just sent on the chat, which is a link to our platform. This is really easy to start. You don't need to be a quantum expert. If you dedicate like 10 minutes, you will be able to run your first quantum program on a quantum computer. You should write it. It's really fun. If you want to be more serious about it, so I think there are some good resources online. You do need some background in linear algebra. It's important, you know, this is the mathematical basis to quantum computing. On top of that, it's helpful to be a developer, at least to some extent. You know, Python developer is great. And I think my main suggestion is just do it. It's not that difficult, and it's really a good time to start, both from the, you know, academic perspective. There is so much interesting research being done on, you know, quantum hardware, quantum control, quantum software, quantum applications. So this is really the time. But also, you know, just as a side project. So I really invite you to try it. It's easy, and also to reach out to if you want to do something more more interesting or more or deeper than that.
In Shahar, I think you raised your hand. You may want to add something there.
Yes, so first of all, I completely agree with Mir. The first thing you need to do is put your hands on it and try and run things. See how you can use those systems to solve your problems. But I also want to say that this is a growing industry, and not everybody in this industry 3 years from now is going to be somebody who can write code. There are going to be many other people around that. So you should just, even if you're not a physics major, a computing major, a computer science major, you can still be part of this industry. And we need these people also. We need the people who are going to write our press releases. We need the people who are going to be our project managers. We need everybody to be able to build this industry. And for them, it's maybe even easier than to write the code. They need to learn about what we're doing. They need to understand the basic concepts and how their expertise can be part of what we're doing today. And so I would also advise people who may be not very strong on the physics side to start learning about the industry, to start learning about technology and getting into that technology from other areas, because we need to build an industry here, and we need everybody to be part of that.
I think that's a great point. As we at Quera are scaling up to build computers, we need technicians, we need assembly people, we need people who understand shipping. And you know, a year ago, I was joking that they barely let me in the door because I only have a master's in physics and not a PhD in physics. But these days, we've lowered the standards, or we haven't lowered the standards of the people, but we don't need necessarily physics education. Will, I wanted to ask you a quick question before we do a quick lightning round of the panelists. We spoke about quantum computers using quantum effects to make this magic happen, but I think that there are two or three other areas where quantum effects are used outside of computing, and perhaps this is one area that your company is investing in. Maybe you could give us a very quick overview of what these areas are.
Yeah, so besides computing, the other big categories are sensing and networking technologies or communication, where folks are using quantum physics to do new and interesting things. So in sensing, for example, there's very, very precise atomic clocks based on quantum control, sort of similar to what you want to use for computing as well. There's things called gravimeters, which allow you to detect gravitational masses without in a passive way. Most sensing gets blocked by matter if you do RF or something like that. But if you detect gravitational masses, then there's matter. It's not an active sensor, so it's easy to detect things underground. you can imagine applications for that. There's also RF sensing for radio frequency technologies. So there's a whole bunch of different buckets of quantum technologies and sensing. And in many ways, those are farther along than some bits of quantum computing. They're sort of simple quantum computers in some ways. On the communication side, you can also use quantum effects to create networks whose security is not based on some mathematical problem being hard to solve, which is the basis for a lot of cryptography today. Instead, the security of a network can be based on quantum physics being at least approximately right, and your devices obeying quantum physics the way you think they do. And so that's a pretty strong proof of security. These are called quantum key distribution networks or quantum networks. There's a few varieties of them, and different folks around the globe are working to build them. So there's big projects in China, in Singapore, and the UK, and parts of Europe, and in parts of the States. Another reason you might want to build quantum networks is not just for cybersecurity applications, but also to connect quantum computers to make them more powerful. So, I mean, there's a lot more I could say. We don't have a lot of time, but I'll just say that you shouldn't think about quantum computing just as one product, but there's a whole ecosystem of things in a whole industry that are getting developed.
Wonderful. So as we come to a close, I'm going to do a couple of things. First, I'm going to type my email in the chat and invite the other panelists to type theirs as well, in case someone wants to be in touch with us. And I also run a podcast called the Superposition Guide podcast. And my favorite question at the end is a hypothetical one. I want to ask the panelists, if you could have dinner with one of the quantum greats, dead or alive, who would that be? Idan, how about you go first quickly?
I think I would start with Feynman. He really advanced the field, and I think kind of gave it the spirit and really described the Quera device 30, 40 years ago. So that'd be the person, and he's dead. So, you know, the people that are living, I still have a shot of talking to.
Very good. And Will?
Sorry, do you want alive or dead?
Dead or alive, up to you.
Oh, wow, that's a whole bunch more. Gosh. Well, I'll go with alive, which is like, it's always fun to chat with Charlie Bennett. Like, you know, he's at IBM, and he's really been he's been a pioneer in this field for decades and decades. And I haven't had a chance to catch up with him super recently, and be curious to kind of get his view on just on how this is all developed and how he thinks about the whole long-term spread of things. And he's not the kind of guy who goes on a lot of panels, so he's better in a dinner setting.
Very good. And Nir?
Yeah, I'd go with Feynman as well.
Shahar?
Of course, Feynman. Come on. He's also a chemist. So yeah, he's a physicist and a chemist. He understands chemistry better than some of the chemists of his era. So yeah. But also I found Worley to be a really interesting person that sees the industry on different levels. So also let me recommend Worley for dinner.
So as we close this webinar, I wanted to just tell an anecdote. I had the pleasure of having dinner at a show a couple of weeks ago with John Preskill, who is also one of the quantum greats. And I asked him the same question. I said, everyone says Feynman. And he says, no, I had plenty of dinners with Feynman. I would probably choose someone else, although maybe I would love to have dinner with him again. He was a student of Feynman, to just see how he feels about the industry. Dan, thank you so much for organizing this, and back to you.
Well,
and thank you
all the panelists, of course, the moderator, and of course, the audience. Thank you for coming, and have a great day.